right, awesome. Thank you, Patrick. So for the next demo, I'm going to pass it off to Alan and Shreyas from the NTT Data team to provide the data on React Shared Components. So over to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Thanks, Alina and team. So really excited to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shreyas Developper, and with me is
Alan Dodge, also a dev at NTT.
Yeah, and we're here today to talk about a thing that we've been working on the side, which is the React Shared Components library. So just going to share my screen here and get started. Can you all see my screen? Awesome. So our team at NTT Data Services over the past a few months primarily has been working on a variety of different user-facing, user-centric web applications for the BC government. And while working on these applications, we've noticed demand and requirement on consistent user interfaces and consistent user experiences across all these applications. So what this means is all these applications need to look the same. They also need to feel the same. And the user interaction and the users actually using these applications need to be the same. And they all need to match the traditional BC Gov themed interfaces. So our team primarily has experience and expertise using the library called React for building these front-end applications. So creating a shared React component library for all the reusable components provided us with a huge value add. It improved our productivity for current and future projects. Along with this, it also provided us a bunch of other advantages, such as improving the consistency across our applications, improving the stability and portability of these components within the various BC Gov applications that we're working on. So an example of an application that we're currently working on that uses this React Shared Component library is our e-filing hub application that is currently being integrated with other applications such as FLA and eDivorce. So without further ado, I'm going to now show you the actual React Shared Components. So if you see here, while it loads, we're using a tool called Storybook to document our components. So on the left here, you can see all the different components that we've currently built. So I'll walk you through some of them, not all of them, and kind of show you what they're all about. So for every component, we have starting out, what that component is, and then some use cases for that component. So when to use this component and when not to use it. So in the case of an alert, you typically want to use this for success, error, warning, or information messages. You do not want to use it for, displaying or highlighting popular content on your website, for example. The main and probably the most important thing on this documentation is our API. So this gives information to the end user about how to consume this component within their application. So in the case of the alert component, you have 4 properties that this component expects: a type, an element, an icon, and some styling, and the required types and whether or not they're mandatory. In this case, all of these are mandatory, and we provide a description as to what that property is so that a user can easily understand what they need to provide and pass in when consuming this component. And then finally, we have all the states of these components enumerated. So you can see in the success case, this is what that component looks like. In the warning case, this is what it looks like, info and alert case. And then the code that can be easily copied and directly placed into your application if you want to consume this component and make it look exactly the way shown above. So in this case, the success case, we have the alert component takes in an icon, which is some JSX component. The type is success. In this case, it would be warning, info, whatever it may be. The styling is just a string that specifies the CSS styling that you're going to apply. And then the element is a string that, tells you what message you want to display. So in your application, this message might be different. The icon might be different, but the general look and feel and the way it works would be exactly the same. So let's take a look at maybe a component that's slightly more complicated. So maybe this button, for example. So in this case, we have properties that are not required. In this case, the disabled. So this indicates whether or not the button is disabled, and it's defaulted to false. So it's not disabled under the default condition. However, if you look in the documentation, you can see that if you do want a disable button, you can just pass in the disable prop, and your button will automatically be disabled. So just like this, we've kind of built a variety of different components that all adhere to the BC Gov style guide. So I'll just quickly click through a few of them. We have the drop down, we have the BC Gov header and footers that are used on all applications. We have our radio buttons. We have some traditional sidecards. You can see where, maybe one with the icon, maybe you don't need an icon on some pages. A terms of use page where, you need to display ability to print the terms of use and actually, force the user to accept these terms and conditions before proceeding. So these are just some examples. We'll put the link to our GitHub repo, which has the link to the live documentation in the chat. So you can take a more detailed look. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but the idea is the same, providing the API and context as to how to consume these components easily and exactly what they look like enumerated in all their different states. So one question that has come up in the past that I wanted to highlight is, how this differentiates itself from what Patrick was talking about, which is the Dev Hub, where all these components kind of, or most of these components already exist. So our goal was to create a kind of package that can directly be lifted and shifted and used within a project. Whereas, instead of having to take the code that exists and integrate it into your application, in this case, if your application is using React, then you can just directly import these components and consume them within your application as shown in the examples. So that's kind of the main goal. And like I mentioned earlier, we're currently using this within our e-filing hub application. And it's has saved us a lot of time and has created a consistent user interface between all our kind of different pages of the application. So now I'd like to pass it on to Alan, and he's going to talk to you more about consumption and usage of this library.
Thanks, Shreyas. Let me try and share my screen. Okay, so this is our repo with links to our live documentation. That's right. Currently, we are not on NPM, as somebody just asked in the chat, but we are working on getting it into NPM. For now, you should be able to copy this string and add the string in the getting started and add it to your project. Should be updated to be pulling our current releases down. And you should then be able to consume all of the components that Shreyas mentioned. Our repo is also set up that if you run into any issues using these components or have an idea for a new component that you would like, feel free to create a bug report or a feature request. Or if you'd like to do some development against this repo, add a component of your own or update one of the existing ones to add a new state or something to it. Feel free to open a PR request against this. I think that's all I was going to talk about. And Shreyas is going to mention future endeavors that we're also working on alongside this.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. So let me quickly share my screen again. Let me know if you can see it. All right, so yeah, so like we just talked about, this is the main thing that we've been kind of working on the side and we're currently consuming within our applications. But in one of our previous kind of presentations of this, while we were kind of working on it and trying to see, what the interest would be like in the community, one of the first questions we got asked was, okay, this is great, React Shared Components, but what about if my project doesn't use React? What if it uses a different front-end framework like Vue or Angular? So this is something that at the time our answer was yes, this is only for React, and that is still the answer, that this is still only for React. However, we've now taken the first step and started building a Vue Shared Components. So you can now see this repo. If you just replace the word React with Vue in the URL, you'll get taken to the Vue Shared Components repository. So we've started replicating those React Shared Components for Vue. So now someone whose project uses Vue as their front-end framework of choice can now similarly import and use these components without any additional code. So I'm just going to quickly show you, the components are pretty much the exact same. However, as you can notice, we don't have all of them built yet. It's still a work in progress. And also, like Alan showed in React, we don't have any releases set up yet. We don't really have a ability to currently consume these. So this is where I'd like to emphasize the fact that we need and really encourage contributors to help us out with not only maintaining these, but also helping get them to the point where they are kind of fully flushed out and we can confidently ask people and be confident for other people to use these. So we'd love to see people helping collaborate on this, and especially someone, for example, who has more experience in using Vue or something like that. And then eventually our goal is to also try and build something like this for Angular. So just wanted to kind of point out that we have started building this for Vue, and our plan is to try and slowly get this to a point where it's at a state where it can be used similar to the React version. But we definitely encourage and look forward to having more people contribute and collaborate with us on this. So I think that's kind of the main pieces that we wanted to show today. Are there any questions about any of the things we've talked about today, or?
Yeah, so thank